Hey, they're not too smart, they're not too smart. They're good people.
I haven't met one since Miles Standish.
Okay, folks, so at 9:08, I will call the meeting of the Board of Water Wastewater Commissioners to order for Tuesday, January 21st, 2025. As required by open meeting law, you're hereby informed that the town will be video and audio taping this public meeting. Anyone in attendance who plans to video or audio tape this meeting, please let the chair know. And with that said, our first item of business will be the update of our Route 28 water main project. And we have here Bob Drake and Eric Woodbury of GHD who are going to update that. I'll tell you that our microphones are pretty good, so as long as people speak up, the system should be able to capture everything.
Excellent.
So it's your thing, Bob.
Thank you. We've made a lot of progress since last time we came before you to speak about the project. Where we stand right now, I've passed out some, disseminated some information for you. Just to give you the overall proposed schedule. What we're calling MassDOT's portion of the work, which is what we call Phase 1, which is from the Dennistown line or Division Street to the Herring River. We're going to be installing a new 3-inch sewer main, low-pressure sewer main in the roadway. And we're also going to be replacing the existing water main. The tentative bid schedule, I got this information from MassDOT's consultant VHB, is they plan on bidding the work right after Labor Day in September of 2025, with construction sometime starting over the winter. Most likely, probably, if the weather's good, probably mid-March area. The water and sewer work is part of MassDOT's project, and they're also reconstructing that section of the roadway with the sidewalk. So it's pretty tough to determine what's going to happen, at what time. So these are just guesses. By talking to their consultant and so forth, this is the sort of timeline that we came up with. So construction with the sewer will most likely begin towards the latter part of March of 2026 and last through September of 2026. Remembering that the summer months, June, July, and August, they're not going to be able to work on Route 28. Then when that is completed, they'll start the water work, which will run from September through December of 2026. So they should have it done within one construction season. Okay, we anticipate the work lasting about 28 weeks in total, roughly 14 weeks for the waters, 14 weeks for the sewer. It's pretty close. I've also given you a little breakdown of construction costs on one of your sheets. What I anticipate the construction cost to be, this is a 90%, and it's labeled 90% construction cost estimate, Main Street, Route 28, Harwich. Okay, and the total construction costs, including contingencies and GHD construction administration and oversight, comes to a total of roughly $3.3 million. These numbers are slightly up from last time I gave you. I'm a little concerned because there's been a lot of work that has been recently bid on the Cape. Dennis has recently put out 4 large sewer jobs. Yarmouth has put out a lot of work. So the 2 or 3 big local contractors that we typically see, Bob Yao, RCC, and Diggett, I think all 3 of those have at least 2 of those contracts, or 1 from each town. I know Mashpee's getting ready to put out a lot of work, and Fell is going to put out a lot of work. So all this, what it does is increases the pricing a little bit. Another thing that has me slightly concerned, and my prices reflect this, okay? I adjustments. So what I think is more realistic, this way prices went up slightly, is that, since this is in a MassDOT contract, it's just not a strictly water or sewer contractor bidding on the work. They do a lot, they're gonna be doing a full depth reconstruction of the roadway and the sidewalks. So sometimes I've seen in the past working, for various communities throughout New England, that the water and sewer prices tend to be a little bit higher to begin with, because their main focus is on the roadway and the sidewalks, the contract. Just to, it's not red flags, it's just, be aware of that, and I think I've covered that in my prices that reflect that, so that's where we stand on that. Contract, what I'm calling Contract 2, which is strictly just the water work, which runs from basically the Harwich River and running easterly towards South Street. It consists of about almost 2 miles of water pipe, so a little under 10,000 feet. And the proposed schedule for that, we're looking to bid that in May of this year, with construction starting in September, right after Labor Day. And we anticipate the work to take about 44 weeks. So the bid, if we bid it in May, we can start the construction in September of 2025, and this will go through to approximately May of 2027. Once again, realizing summer months shut down between June, July, and August. And also I put in some of the winter months, because we just don't know. We've been fortunate the last several years that we haven't had snow, but I think we're due. So I did stretch it out a little bit, because I took the precautions to for the winter months. Plus, it's tough to work water in January and February, because lines are freezing, shutting down, turning things on, and so forth. And I didn't pass out the construction costs for that. I do have it right here. Let me do that right now for you.
While you're passing those
Yep.
out, Bob, so when we met in October, your anticipated bid date was late February of 2025.
Right.
And so, why are we so far out to, especially since you've just told us about all those firms that, are getting ready to put out work and have work, it would seem that we would want to get ahead of those a little bit.
Right. So I know the next bunch of work that's coming out is going to be later. It's not until later on this spring and summer.
That's Mashpee?
Mashpee and Falmouth, yeah.
Well,
So
May
we
is,
should be ahead of them.
go ahead.
So, and that's mostly sewer work that they're doing. So the water work is typically another contractor and things like that. One of the reasons was we had to go back and do some soil borings. We submitted
Right.
these plans initially. It was suggested, thought that we wouldn't need soil borings for MassDOT work. When we submitted the plans to MassDOT for their review, one of the requirements was to do soil borings. So those were just completed last Friday.
Yeah, 44.
We just finished the last one. So now what we have to do is take that information, present that information as far as where the groundwater table is and how we anticipate handling dewatering to the Conservation Commission. And once we get their ruling, we'll submit the second round of those plans to MassDOT for their review, and then we should be able to advertise. So,
To conservation too.
yeah, yep.
I'm
And
sorry?
We spoke to conservation, we had a meeting with them, not sort of off the record, just to,
Yeah.
kind of tell them what we're gonna be doing. They seem to be on board as long as they're included in the process, so I don't think it'll be.
And the work's going to be done on the roadway. Most of the work is going to be done on the roadway, Route 28. The only portion that's not is going to be the directional drill that's going on the Harwich River. And we gave her a preliminary design for how we're going to handle or control, erosion and so forth in those test pit areas. So she seemed very on board with everything that we proposed and discussed and so forth. So, when we get the soil boring logs, hopefully we'll get those in by next week. We'll sit down with Jason and Steve Hicks and review all that information with these guys, set up a meeting with the Conservation Commission, present the information in front of them, and so forth. The couple of soil borings that we've gotten back, or I've heard of, the groundwater table's down about 5 feet. So I anticipate laying the water main right above that, maybe at 4.5 feet deep. So we'll minimize the dewatering and those concerns. So that's how we'll handle all that.
Yeah, it is what it is, and I understand the borings, and I'm glad they're done.
Yep.
I'll just say that, you can't generalize, but our experience in this specific area is that May bids come in kind of high. People have to take into consideration their transportation, their staging down here and
Right.
everything else. And particularly since our, for one, is already, pretty well tied up. I mean, even April, would seem better to me than May. I mean, our May bids, some of them have
Right.
blown things out of the water. Now, some of those were sewer. We haven't had a water bid in quite a few years. I don't know if that will be a substantive difference.
Right.
But I'll just let you be aware, if you look back over bids that the town has gotten in May for the last many years, they're pretty high in this area.
Right, and I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
I mean, bids are, because contractors have their work, so they're
Right.
actually looking to do that work in the fall, which is when we're
Right.
anticipating on doing this work, so that plays out well. The big controlling factor here is MassDOT in their review process.
Right,
Unfortunately, I can't control that.
yeah,
The last time we submitted the first round, I think
Yeah.
they were very quick with their review. They got it back to us within, I think, 3 weeks, which is very quick for them.
yeah,
Sometimes they take as long as 6 months. I don't anticipate that. They seem to have sped up their review process. So I've anticipated 45 days, and that's why the schedule is pushing into May.
Yeah.
And that said, I'm hoping a very conservative timeframe.
yeah.
If I can move it up to April, I'll be happy to move up to April, but I don't want to say, hey, I'm going to bid it in March and come before you in March and say, oh, geez, that wasn't a realistic.
No, I
date,
understand the MassDOT factor, so,
Right.
thank you.
So when you submit your next set of plans to MassDOT, will that be 100%?
They'll be 100%. They'll be with the big factor will be with the conservation's comments.
Okay.
Okay, so that's what I'll be, talking probably to them to set up a date next week.
Okay.
I mean, not to set up a, commit whenever their next commission meeting is.
So if they turn that around fairly quick, there's a good chance that we can get
Then I
that
can
right out
submit
to
it
bid.
quickly, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and hopefully that process will speed up.
Okay.
Just, I've dealt with so many boards over my
Yeah.
career, it's like, I wish things would take, a week here and a week there. Unfortunately, especially since, most people are short-staffed and so forth, it takes longer.
Can I ask you a quick question? The bridge itself, is that phase 1 or phase 2?
That's gonna be phase 2.
Phase 2, okay.
And initially, I think, we discussed this a little bit last time, our initial design was to include a pipe on the bridge and also the directional drill adjacent to the bridge underneath the river. We have discussed that, and we've gone the route where we're just gonna have the pipe directional drill underneath the river. I'm gonna take the water main off the bridge. So you just have 1 feet over there.
So, I can't take this in when I first get it, but, so is this, when it says construction, is that including construction and materials?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
Some of them seem so low, it didn't seem like it could include that, so, okay,
Yeah, that price really hasn't changed when I first gave you the,
that's fine.
the estimate,
But it's labor and materials?
that's correct, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jason, excuse me, Jason, I brought it one of your pens, but I just wanted to, thank you.
So this runs from the bridge to the town line?
Yes. No, that's from, that's just strictly water, Alan, and that's gonna be what we call
We
phase
will
2,
be on
which
that
is from the
contract,
bridge
but we just got
running
it.
easterly to South Street.
So this is just a
Okay.
Oh, I
presentation.
didn't realize.
The other one was from the river, Herman River, to the town, Dennis Town line at Division Street. Yep.
That's sewer, right?
That's water and sewer.
Right.
Right, right.
Okay.
What's going to happen, for instance, in the Phase 1 portion, the western portion? So all of those streets along there, will there be any upgrades to their water service? Or, I know we can't connect to sewer because we don't have a place for the effluent to go yet. But what would be the plans on the western portion for water? I'll ask first.
Yeah, the water main, we're gonna be replacing the main water main in the roadway, and we're gonna be relaying their water services from the proposed water main to the back of the sidewalk, or to the property line. So we'll be out of Route 28, which is typical.
So they're laterals into there?
The water services from the main
Yeah,
to the back side of the
Right.
sidewalk, which is the town's jurisdiction, or
Yeah.
MassDOT's. The homeowner is usually responsible from
Yeah,
that
yeah.
portion to the house.
interesting. I wonder if any of our customers will think that's an opportunity to change their own portion of their water service, but we shall see.
Mhm. And I do have in our contract that I provided to you, public meetings and so forth. I
Right,
put
we'll
in
get to that,
Three
yeah.
public meetings for us, updating your GIS mapping,
Mm-hmm.
okay? So I have included all that within those prices, because I know that was important for you.
Mm-hmm.
And updating your website if you choose to do that.
So none of the mains on the side streets would be,
Same thing, we'll be going from the new proposed water main
right,
to whatever the limits of work, or just beyond the limits of work for the roadway. So usually just maybe a couple, maybe 10, 20 feet up the side streets.
I see.
We'll be laying new water mains too. up to
okay.
that point.
10 or 20 feet, that's
Yeah.
more than I thought, actually.
Mhm. Well, to basically the back of the sidewalk, that's usually the limits.
Mm-hmm. Okay, looks good. Any other questions from the board before we get into like public outreach and that area questions? Well, okay, we thank you for this portion. Now, in terms of going through the public outreach portion of the contract, which is important to us, Jason, could I ask you, Jason had some ideas on how that might flow that sounded reasonable. Could I ask you to share that?
Yeah, we could, it'd be great to start out with a flyer, send it to everybody that is going to be affected by this project. And then I had talked with Bob and to set up a few meetings, at least 3 meetings with people, whether they be during the day, at night, when it goes to kick off. So once we know when construction's going to start after the bid, we could set up a meeting that to everybody it's going to affect. And then once that construction season is over with, before we start the next one, have another kickoff meeting. So everybody knows where we are and what we're going to do and who it's going to affect. And then once that season ends, the following season, we'll have another one. So everybody stays very much up to date on, are we putting the water main in? Are we doing services? And where we're going to be, and who's going to be turned off, and who's going to be affected by that. And throughout the progress, there'll be boots on the ground. There will be people out there informing and doing that. And if we have to have another meeting, then we have another meeting. But
And the website, we'll have that on the website?
Whatever you want for a website, we do
I think it's
have,
important.
we talked briefly on that, Jason and I, and, website, we can update it once a week
With a map?
with a map and show you where we're at and so forth, and where we anticipate the next week gonna be.
I think people these days go to websites a lot.
oh yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely.
And,
Did one of you?
yeah, and so how how long do you anticipate people would be out, would be shut off? Or is this being done as a secondary and then
So-
go back and pull out the
There
original?
will be a time that people will be shut off. We're trying to minimize that when we tie their new service over, or we shut a water main off to tie that over.
Right.
And that's why we got the insertion valve machine, so we can put those valves in and minimize how many people are off and for how long of a time period.
Can you just remind me roughly how long, if everything goes well, how long is it a day or a week or an hour?
Yeah,
Could
a
be
water service
hours.
is usually a couple of hours.
Yeah,
With the new?
Okay, that's a water service.
yeah.
When we connect the side main, it's a little bit more complicated. This is where, Jason and I are working on installing insertion valves
Yeah.
to minimize that disruption, because you have to drain the water main. That usually takes about, I would say, a half a day typically.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
At most, it'd be a day, but we would, notify people and so forth. And, same thing with the services, we would notify those people, hey, your water service is being connected or reconnected to the new main today. Usually they get anywhere from 2 to 4, depending on how long that service run is per day. So that gives you sort of an idea. If it's short, we do quicker, obviously.
Thank
you,
you.
I'm sorry. Are you gonna put temporary water on top,
No,
on
we
the ground?
decided, working with the town, we decided not to put down temporary water mains. We're gonna be putting in a new main, separate trench from the existing one. That's why when we tie them over, they'll be live up to that point, and we'll just tap them right over.
That's keeping it simple. What's that? Yeah, that is.
Yeah, well, that's for the MassDOT portion. We still have to discuss a little portion down by South Street. We may have to use some temporary water main down in that area, just because of where the location of the existing main and all the existing utilities right in that area is very congested.
Yeah.
So we may have to, in that couple block stretch area, put some temporary bypass in there.
Sounds good to me.
Me too.
Back to the website for a minute. So it sounds like we'd probably want to link on the front page of the website, rather than, people don't generally go to the water department's website as a, normal daily activity. But we certainly could link it over to a map.
Even on the town website.
That's what I mean,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
on that main page, and link it to, I don't know if the information about a map where construction is and things like that will be better embedded in our water department page, or if it might even warrant its very own page, since it's gonna go on for a few years, but we can work with the town on that and interface. As long as you get us the information, we can,
We'll do
we
whatever
can-
you want,
we-
whether you
we
just want a
can-
map, but that's why I bring him.
I'd like to see a map.
I know my limits sometimes,
I was wondering how you got in this morning.
To the left, okay.
I'd like to see a map, and I think we should ask the Chamber of Commerce to link to it as well.
oh,
It's
yeah.
a great idea, yeah.
Yeah, that's an excellent idea. So, I made my own map.
There you go.
I made my own.
What are you-
It took a
what
while.
are you calling that?
Phase Z.
The marine phase.
Yeah, there you go. I suggest you use it. Probably got
Whatever you want. I'll call it whatever you want me to call it.
So, well, not Upper County, that caused a big problem. I went Upper County and Dennis, that was a huge problem last time. So I appreciate all this information. Want to talk about, I believe the contract that we just got will cover bidding, construction oversight, and public outreach, plus
That's
other
correct.
stuff. But those three main things.
Right.
So, as a board, we need to go through that document And we'll certainly have it on, one thing about a May bid is it gives us a little more time. I was trying to figure out how we were gonna fit this in with a February bid, so we can certainly put that on our next agenda. And if the board could please review that contract that we just received.
I do have Phase 2 contract here too, so I'll pass that out.
I thought that was the
Well,
phase two.
that's Phase 1, that's MassDOT's portion, and I have the water portion over here. That'll pass out.
Okay, hang on
Okay.
a second.
Can they both be on our next meeting?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, good.
But, so this is phase one's
That's
contract?
MassDOT, right.
Um,
Right here on the-
Yeah, it's right up at the top.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
Yeah.
So, but how would this board sign for sewer services? We don't cover those,
It has
Sure.
water in there too.
It has water in there also.
but
Okay.
we can't sign for sewer.
Oh, okay.
So that's, yeah, we'll talk about that, and we'll
Right.
probably have two separate.
Okay.
Yeah, we
yep, we
absolutely
can-
cannot sign
All
for
right.
sewer services.
Yep, and that will go up to, that will go to town hall.
It
and,
must be
we can talk
completely
about-
separate,
Okay.
We'll talk about it, that's all.
Completely.
Did you get one?
Yep. Oh, that's simple enough.
This is.
Yeah.
Even on my work, I have it all broken down between water and sewer, so that's easily just changed over. That can, I can do that extremely quick.
So I'm thinking we should probably give you these back before we get overly confused.
Okay, Phase 1?
Yeah,
Okay,
because we absolutely can't touch it.
okay.
But if it's,
So if,
It's
It's
so,
the
beyond
same,
the
it'll just be
policy.
different.
Excuse me, Judith?
isn't, in this, so my understanding of our, what we're supposed to do versus the select board, hasn't that already been decided at the select board level?
Right, they do sewer, we do water in phase two.
So the change in the contract, if I'm understanding you, is basically gonna just, the signature will be for water services only.
Okay.
No, my understanding was that because the policy piece had already been decided by the select board, this is now actually an effectual contract, which as the sewer commissioners, we are supposed to oversee.
Okay, so that will be funded through the town money, through the 6.5 million
I
that
see
was
what you're
voted
saying.
a few
Okay.
years ago, which is overseen by the select board because it's in another phase beyond phase two. The sewer pipe will be in phase 4 or phase 5, whenever they determine it. So
Okay.
it's not under our purview in any way. So I'm sorry, but it's not just the signature page, it's the content. We can't sign even beyond funding for anything that has to do with design or construction of future phases, all
Okay,
right?
yeah, that's easily changed.
Took us a
so-
long time to get there.
Not a problem.
Yeah.
so maybe, if you can work that out and just put the water portion of it, and you email that to me,
Yeah.
I can email that to everybody
Yeah.
and distribute it, that one, so that way we're not waiting on it.
Right.
Good.
Well, this one's starting first anyway.
Yes, this one
you
was
know,
be starting
so-
first anyways,
So I
yep.
really
And
think
that's
that
just
we,
strictly water, so.
Yep.
we're
Right.
all set.
if we focus mostly, if we get stuff emailed, great, but I mean, they're gonna be similar, you know,
Right,
in the
and
end,
just, yeah,
so.
just a description of work and the cost will be
Right.
different, so.
And of course, this will be part of our, you know, public outreach design, so.
Mhm.
So we have a little less work to do for our next meeting.
Could I actually hang on to that?
If you want to, sure.
Yeah, I just like to read it and just.
It's gonna be
be
very
aware.
similar to the one that you have.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh, could I,
yeah, no,
Me
this is,
too.
yeah.
You guys
put
are
a note
making
at
work,
the top.
huh?
Getting your steps, getting your steps in.
You're
I
actually-
know, my ups and downs.
Yeah, today.
You printed it, so.
Yeah, oh, not a problem.
You just get, you can be aware of the scope of work,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And stuff, the money will be the selectmen. You know, you're still gonna do the same thing regardless of who's signing the check.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
Any other questions from the board? Do I have any questions from the audience, since we have some audience members? Yes, Ed?
Yeah, just to clear up the water, I know that the sewer portion of the dry pipe is from the town, line with Dennis to the Heron River. The water portion goes further?
There's two contracts.
Yep,
The MassDOT contract, which is from Division Street to the Heron River,
okay,
okay, that's one contract. The second contract, which is just strictly water, which is under the town's jurisdiction, is from the Heron River all the way to South Street, about 2 miles easterly.
all right,
So there's two separate contracts.
okay,
So in all, it's about 3 miles of new water pipe.
okay.
Well, if I'm not hearing any other questions, I'll thank you both for your presentation. And we may, I'm sure through Jason, be back and forth a little bit on the contract, but hopefully between our next meetings, we can get those moving and look at the new one once it's separated from the town's portion, and move on.
And hopefully by then we'll have our meeting with Conservation Commission, and I can give you a more moved up schedule for you.
Okay,
Okay?
Great.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
all right.
Thank you.
Okay. Great.
That's it for me.
Okay, so, for our next item of business, I'm just gonna say a few words of introduction, and I'm pleased that we have Christine Flynn, our town planner, along with Ed McManus and Dave Spitz from the local planning committee, who have joined us. And as background for the board, let me say that obviously, I think most people are aware that the local planning committee has been working for a couple of years, doing their revision of the local comprehensive plan. And recently I was in touch with Joyce McIntyre, who is the chair of that committee, who, you know, certainly the committee as a whole would appreciate our input on any of the areas they're starting to wind up and go before boards and get ready for town meeting approval, hopefully. So, I mean, it's a very thorough, it's a wonderful report. I find myself, when I'm reading one area, I get drawn into another, which, you know, can be pretty time consuming. But the report itself is, the local comprehensive plan includes 2 other reports for us to address. And they are the housing production plan and the open space and recreation plan. The first area of urgency might be too strong a word, but the first matter to take up is their housing production plan, so that they can get approvals for that and move on. With that said, since our last meeting, it was actually during our last meeting that Joyce was contacting me, went ahead and had some conversations with our consultant, Dan Pelletier, as well as Jason. And there are only a couple of areas, you know, obviously to do with the water supply, that we felt that some additional information was required. And what they really pertain to is that most of the information in the report was done from, you know, our website and previous reports, which is very thorough. The one significant thing that was missing was the fact that last summer, which wouldn't have been on the website when this was first being looked at, our water management permit was approved. And coincidentally, it's interesting because our previous water management permit was approved in 2010, very much like the local comprehensive plan. And here's our second one, which is also supposed to be every 10 years, but they just approved it last summer, which is 2024. So it's interesting that they both had the same timing, even though they're 10 years report. So that was really, you'll see in all the comments, they kind of go back to that. The main fact that we felt, or the input felt that should be included was the fact that that permit increased our pumping capacity significantly. So that's an important factor going forward over the next 10 years. When you couple that increase along with the fact that we'll be putting another well online probably in 2 years, then, that really increases our pumping capacity. For information, for a trade-off for that, we have to do more monitoring of some vernal pools and things like that for the state. But, the main impact is the increase in pumping capacity. So before we get into the explicits, I'd be happy to take any comments from any members of the board to explain where we stand.
Well, yeah, as you said, we're actually in the process of overseeing, updating 3 plans. The housing production plan and the open space and recreation plan sort of feed into the local comprehensive plan, but they're separate and distinct documents.
Ed, I'm sorry, could I ask you to raise your voice just a little? Our microphones pick them up, but you have a really soft voice.
Sorry.
Okay.
Anyway, the open space and conservation plan and the housing production plan are plans that the state requires us to have in place to make us eligible for housing assistance funds and also open space acquisition funds principally, which we, with the Conservation Trust and the League of Conservation Trusts of Cape Cod, have been very successful with accessing. So we want to make sure those are up to date. But they become the sort of data platforms to feed into updating the local comprehensive plan, which is sort of involves all aspects of what's happening in town. And as such, there's sort of, as far as principal interests of the water department is one, obviously you mentioned, is pumping capacity, i.e. how that will affect the amount of development that can be served, and make sure that is adequate. But other areas that we consider in it, especially in like the open space and natural resources area, is any actions the town can take to sort of protect the water supply. And there are a number of sections in that discuss those sorts of areas. And then the final thing is part of the plan, which we haven't actually, we're just in the midst of putting together, is the sort of capital improvement section of it. Obviously, the two projects that you were just talking about are capital improvement projects that will have to be put into the plan, referenced in it. But as this goes for 10 years, if you can sort of look ahead and see and mention and come up with any other areas that you think should be mentioned, so that they don't get lost in the shuffle of the capital planning that the town, principally the selectmen and the administrative officer, do during budget time. That would be a helpful addition to the plan.
One question on that, Ed, before we get into the nitty-gritty. On our comments, which I'll hand out for the local comprehensive plan, which were not in the packet, there is a list of are immediately upcoming projects, which will probably carry us 5 years because they're big ones. But also, I did see some charts in there to do with fixed assets, and, you know, I didn't submit any comments to do with that. That looked like something, I mean, if you need further on that, let us know, is what I'm saying. I'm not gonna try to guess, you know, your planning, if you know what I mean. So, but there were some pretty hefty looking charts in there in the LCP that were blank, so I left those alone for the moment, you know. So, for the board, what was in your packet, first of all, were some comments with the yellow and blue pages. I don't know if that came through as yellow and blue in your packet. You know, my color coded.
It didn't come through as well.
It didn't?
I don't think I got that.
It would have been in the front, it would have been towards the very front.
You know, the housing production plan,
Yes. That,
yellow and blue.
yeah, oh, it did come through yellow and blue, okay.
On yours, let's see.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
okay.
hard to read, but you got it.
You know, the biggest question I have is when you say enough is enough as far as development. I mean, think
Well-
about it. It's not just water, it's access. How many more cars can you put on the road?
That's true, but, you know, one of the with our launching of the sewer, you know,
I mean,
wastewater program, and by participating with the state in the zero interest SRF funding, we've agreed to doing what do they call it, a flow neutral?
Flow neutral.
So, you know, we're limited in our watersheds on how much development we can, and if we decide, like, you know, the Pine Oaks project in North Harwich, which is the Herring River watershed, if that goes through, it's going to be a big boost in the build out, or, you know, the zoning density that was allowed in that area. So we're gonna have to figure one of the things we'll have to do is, and we really are not exactly sure how this happens, is decrease the development potential in other watersheds to maintain that flow neutral basis, which is, like I said, I'm not sure anybody has quite figured out how that happens.
I mean, but we're only talking about one line.
Huh?
We're only talking about one line, water.
Mhm.
But, I mean, there's so much more that needs to be discussed.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, at some point, you cry uncle and
Mhm.
stop, it's over.
Yeah.
you know?
And unfortunately, the state provides us very few tools to be able to do that.
Yeah,
You know, and we get more tools with the 40B issue. When we hit 10%, we have a greater ability to turn down those sorts of developments. But up until then, they have pretty much tied our hands that we have to consider them.
Yeah, I hear you,
No,
but it's important, I
Yeah.
mean,
you know,
as I look at it, I mean, I look at the number of gallons we pump each year here,
yeah.
I mean, it just,
Mhm.
at some point, the well runs dry.
Sure.
Yeah.
And, you know, at some point, if it is running dry for essential needs, i.e. provide
Yeah,
people with, well, we're gonna have to look at restricting possibly water using on landscaping.
yeah, yeah.
And,
I think you have a question there.
You know, I'm gonna jump on that just for a second, because I have spoken to, you know, Jason and people, and our feeling, as a department, is that we don't anticipate, any, lack of water for any housing departments that are housing projects that are currently being talked about. And we honestly think that if we do have to restrict outdoor watering, that would probably come about more by policy rather than need right now, rather than need about, by outcry by people who are against irrigation or other things. So I just want to say that, because I hear the public with all the housing proctors talk about a concern about density versus the water supply. And at the moment, our water supply is adequate and ample, I feel, so.
So our committee is 11 people. Actually, 10 of us show up and one person hasn't been there in a while. But with 10 of us, we get a lot of different viewpoints. So I'll just give you a little bit of mine. And responding to you, Alan, I think we probably hear more frequently than anything else that we don't want this town to get out of hand. We don't want to grow much.
Yeah, amen.
We also hear that we do need to do some things. We need to control what's going to happen. If we look at what's happening with what the market forces bring us, our community is changing. And will probably change even more as things move to more seasonal and more expensive housing. There's a lot of concern about that. So one of those is, how do you provide housing for the people who make this town go? Medical, public services, all sorts of things. And a lot of us feel that we do need housing. Now, we don't want to grow too much, but we need to counter the trend towards a totally richer seasonal community. We want a more well-rounded community. So in talking about housing, we talk a lot about reusing existing. That should be a big piece. But we also talk some about where can we put new housing. Now, the North Harwich project, a lot of people feel there's just too much in one place, and that may be true. One of the things we want to do is try to encourage housing in the village centers. And the ones that I think work are East Harwich, Harwich Center, well, Harwich Port, I don't know how much it's going to get for affordable housing, and West Harwich. So I think we've got some places where it can go. One of the main limits is the CWMP flow neutral, which makes it hard to connect to sewer in East Harwich. So, for example, if you dig into our, I said at the last meeting 150 pages, but it's more like 70 or 80 pages, you do find some points that I think are important. In our Action Center, under Community Facilities, page 4-7 of the draft community plan. Review the Harwich CWMP for potential amendments to achieve greater housing choice in village centers. That's the sort of thing that is going to be very much affected by the actions of this board. So there are things like that. There are others. I'm just bringing that up as one example to say, we don't want growth to get out of hand, but we don't want our community to change so much that the people who are making it go can't live anywhere close to here. So we got some different things we're trying to balance. Then you drill down to the specifics, such as the flow neutral, and are there any ways to provide any amendments to allow more housing that connects to sewer rather than being forced to go somewhere else.
And if I may follow up on that, the issue really is where it's going to happen. I mean, our current zoning allows for a certain amount of development, and for the past years, quite honestly, both in market rate and subsidized housing, the town's participation has basically been taking whatever walks in the door with a plan. We haven't, as a town, been very aggressive in stepping forward and saying, okay, this is the plan for this area, and let's figure out how to get it done, and controlling that development. And that's, to ensure that we get the type of housing that we think we need to maintain that well-rounded workforce that we need. The town actually has to step up and take a much more aggressive position in directing where the development goes and how it goes. And I know that's an uncomfortable issue for the town. I remember that piece of property off of Hawks Nest Road that, proposed taking by eminent domain. It was sort
Oh,
of
yeah.
own it as a known, and there was a big pushback on, quote, taking somebody's property. Well, I mean, in some of the village centers, if things are going to happen there, and put development where I think it should go, where it's near services and where it can support some density, because it's a walking area. We're probably going to have to take a stance of taking some property by eminent domain to allow redeveloping those areas and providing the affordable and attainable housing that the workforce is going to be looking for.
I have a couple questions.
Bob?
I have a couple questions. So, like what's the status of more infill projects? Do you guys look at that as far as new projects? I mean, 1 or 2 ADUs, or trying to get to that 10% by building from within, rather than just waiting for somebody to come in with 100 units.
We've encouraged that. We've had several projects recently. The schoolhouse project, which has been rehabbed, which is out in West Harwich, right off of Route 28 on Depot Street. And so that's been a great example. The private developer has worked with the town to do not a friendly 40B, but they have received some subsidy from the Affordable Housing Trust. In exchange, that 3 of the 10 units will be permanently restricted for affordable, for those earning 80% or less of the year-round, of the area median income. So there'll be year-round rental apartments. So there are opportunities for more infill development. I know that with 62 Route 28, the Harwich Church, or the West Baptist Church rather, that's also coming up online as another 12-unit development project. And I think the same developer who rehabbed the schoolhouse project is also looking to do a rental mixed-use project, also along Route 28 in the West Harwich area. And, when you go along West Harwich with the historic DCPC, it has hindered some development, so I do think this committee has been very sensitive to really reconsidering zoning and looking at the each village center individually and looking at the needs and potential development in terms of what currently exists, but also how could we encourage infill development and, as David said, redevelopment of certain buildings.
Good.
And more?
Ed and I have talked about this before with the governor's new housing law that just went into effect. There seems to be a lot of opportunity that we need to at least all get involved in and look to see it. I think it affects water because as they build affordable housing, we have to bring the water to them. And so that's a direct impact on affordable housing to this board, I believe. So I sent Noreen a link to it. And
Bob, send me a link and I'll be sending it out to the board.
Yeah, I think as we move forward, we should look at every opportunity what the state's got to give us and use it, but.
So there are a lot of tools. So we've got general language in our plan saying, do the infill stuff, you know, do the affordable stuff, do the workforce stuff. We don't want it just to be low income, we want it to be
Yes.
that, which select board member says the invisible middle or something, but, you know.
Attainable.
Okay, well, attainable is the word that you've been
Yeah, yeah.
pushing. So we got all those in general terms, and how is it gonna actually happen? One of the tools that Harwich actually did was the 2020 amendment that changed the density for multifamily housing. So you can do more dense multifamily housings than you could do for the previous 40 years in Harwich. For the small, single-family village type of things that the state is pushing, there would have to be zoning changes to allow that. So that's on people's radar, then the town has to take the next step. Then you also have to balance what Alan brought up, which is, okay, the state's pushing all this stuff, and we need to do something, but how much do we need to do? So there's an eternal balancing act going on.
Yeah.
Yeah,
How-
yeah.
Sorry, but how far away from the 10% are we?
We're half.
We're halfway there.
Yeah, we're at
Okay.
4.98%.
4.9.
Yeah.
So we
So-
have 328 units on the subsidized housing inventory at the moment.
Speak up a little, Chrissy.
We have 328 units that qualify for the state's subsidized housing inventory,
So we need twice more?
yes.
So, you know, and as Bob mentioned, the new Housing Act has a lot of stuff in it, and one of the big pieces is this whole issue of the seasonal communities portion of it, and that's still in the process of enrolling. They're developing the regulations, so, you know, it sort of made our job a little bit, and things sort of
Changes.
drop down right in the middle of close to trying to finish
Yeah,
up the
'cause that's
project.
us.
Yeah, but that provides us with will provide us with a lot of tools. But like, you know, some of the things we've done in the past make, especially with the multifamily changes 2 years ago, 3 years ago,
Yeah.
4 years ago.
About 4 years
ago.
4 years ago. In terms of sort of redeveloping some existing areas, especially possibly along 28, you can, it will have to go into the zoning ordinance and simply change some of the definition and stuff, because you have a number of properties along there that have 1 or 2 houses on it, and they could they could be classified by adding additional units as multifamily. It changes how they can get financing to make that development, but the problem is we now define a multifamily as it has to have at least 3 units in one of the structures. Well, you know, to do that, you wind up having to maybe tear down some of the existing housing, which, you know, but that should be, you know, a simple definitional change.
But, you know, the other thing is, we're not talking about how we handle traffic.
Yeah.
You know, we have year-round summer traffic when we get through. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, there's a limit, there's only so much land there, you know.
Bob?
I know.
Is it possible, how much infill would you say we could do to get to that 10%? Is that unrealistic to think infill projects can make it without big projects?
I think we'd need some of the larger projects. I don't know if the capacity is there for the infill just yet. And also, I think, you know, in order to create these units, we are looking to foster more incentive, or to create more incentives for private development, so that the towns are not shouldering the burden of having to do the development. And that's a complicated process, because it also requires that the developer will have to restrict many of the units to meet the state standards. And so sometimes that might be a deal breaker. So, in answer to your question, you know, I do think some of the larger projects, like what the town is undertaking, 456 Queen Anne Road, the Marceline property, that will go a long way. That will be a huge benefit for the town. So I think it's gonna require a combination of smaller and some large projects. And when I'm talking about larger projects, over 40 units, 40-plus units.
You can get,
And-
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, David.
I was just gonna say, on the ADU for homeowners, I looked into doing that, and I can't afford to.
Check out the zoning law, I mean, the governor's affordable housing.
I will, yeah,
It's a start.
The ADUs are good for individual properties.
right.
They're not gonna get you too close to the 10%. The large projects will get you there quicker.
Right.
My personal focus would be, if you look at infill opportunities, as Ed brings up in Harwich Center, there's a lot of land in the East Harwich Commercial District. The way commercial growth is going, you don't need those stores anymore that you used to. There's a lot of room for infill housing there. There's some opportunities in West Harwich that fortunately we got a young guy who's willing to put his neck out and try to do a few of these things. So there are a lot of infill possibilities.
And how is zoning handling a lot of this? I mean, is it gonna be flexible, is it working on these infill projects, or, I mean, it seems we've run into these regulations that stop things.
No, zoning is something that we need to be aware of, whether it's changing definitions, whether it's modifying some of the language. And, you know, as the town planner, one of the responsibilities of the planning board is to really actively look at zoning. And that's a key priority for my responsibility, and to always, to continue to review and look at areas where that need to be updated or modified. And it takes time, you know, these things don't happen, these corrections or revisions don't, it's a process, and unfortunately, it's a slow process, but it's one that we need to continue to review and update. And I have to give the town a lot of credit. It's been very impressive to see the zoning that the town has created in terms of mixed use, multifamily, two-family, and even the accessory dwelling units, which the town allowed as of right for the residential districts prior to the governor's, or prior to the state's legislation. So, you know, from my perspective, it's been very impressive to see the work that the town has done so far.
It just seems like you have zone, you want to get to that 10%,
Yep.
but you can't do it too fast because of the process, so.
Yeah,
That's
well,
just
one of the whole issues with zoning, making zoning changes is that they're not simple
No.
to try and explain to people, even to professionals that are trying to analyze a project and figure out all the zoning. I mean, their eyes start bleeding as they're trying to
They've
read
never,
through it.
they've
But
never been simple.
No,
no,
it's
and
never.
so to take issues to town meeting, if it's so often that something gets proposed and it's not clear, or somebody raises a fanciful objection to it or not, it's enough to kick it out of getting the 2/3 requirement to change
And
it.
it is,
you know.
it's 2/3 requirement.
It's a 2/3, yeah, which is,
So, for us, how many more million gallons can we pull out of the ground?
With the new permit?
Regardless, as we expand and continue to grow the town, how much more can we? Oh, we need to do sewer, without a doubt.
Mhm.
It's gotta happen at some point.
They give you an average on year, so it's an average on year. They don't go by, okay, you can do X amount of, you can do this many more millions of gallons. So we increase, I want to say, about 300,000 gallons a day in 2027.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, we increased quite a bit.
Yeah, it's huge.
How much has it been going up in the last 5 years?
So last year it actually went down. So we pumped 800 million gallons last year. I'm sorry, in 2023, we pumped 800 million gallons. In 2024, we just did the calculations, we're about 790 million gallons, so it actually went down. Now, you gotta take into consideration that if you have a dry year or a wet year, that plays a very big
Yeah, you
part
gotta
of.
look at a little longer time.
Yeah, so you gotta really project that over 5 years, to get a good, accurate average of what you're actually pumping. So,
So you can only pump so much, so long, and the well goes dry. So, yeah, I think it's something you have to take into consideration, without a doubt. And I've been here all my life, and I've seen years where we had to restrict water use. So,
Bob?
Isn't, water use, yes, restricting it is gonna be an issue to look at, but also sewer and/or septics, in my view, controls it tighter than water, because you can only build what the soil can handle as far as effluent, or the sewer's capacity is being built. And I don't know that would be the better number I would wanna look at, is how many sewer connections until we, build out, or how many septic systems until the area of Harwich itself can no longer handle a septic system.
Yeah, the Cape Cod Commission did a
Yeah.
study some years ago, yeah.
And so then that says we're built out.
I think that's out of date.
Yeah, I know.
It's probably
but,
out of date,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's the, formula I would use rather than water, but I think you guys are doing great work. I hope to see us progress and be reasonable and try and get it passed. And take advantage of
Okay.
the governor's plan.
Just one last issue, we talked, on housing, we talked about the 40B projects that are coming up, the one that the town's doing on Queen Anne and the one that Pine Oaks is proposing. Actually, this West Harwich School one, he's proposing that 3 of those 10 units be, is it 3 of 10 or 3 of 12?
10.
3 of 10.
3 of 10 are going to be deed restricted affordable. Well, because it's a rental project, it means that all 10 of those units will account for our affordable housing list to make that 10%. If they had been ownership housing, only the 3 affordable would count towards making that unit. So to the extent that, Pine Oaks does, I don't know, they're talking 240 units, which I think they have some issues with, but I'm not involved in that approval process, but, and if they do, I don't know what 25% of it would be, but the entire 240 units would then count if they, because it's going to be a rental project. So, we'd make a substantial jump ahead on meeting our goal of the 10% and getting a lot better control than over future development.
Okay, folks.
Yeah, I just wanted to put in a plug for an actual left-hand light to turn towards the dump at, where,
An arrow.
at the intersection there. An actual arrow that, yes, because it's very dangerous.
Coming from Harwich Center?
Coming from Harwich Center, when you come up to the light, you want to turn left. It's pretty scary because we have so much year-round traffic now. I don't know what that process
Okay.
is or who does it.
That's state control, isn't it?
No.
Yeah.
No, it is the
All
town.
That
right,
would be town.
folks.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to try to corral you back in because we have to go through these.
Oh,
So,
what does the yellow and what does the blue
okay,
mean?
so, all right, so we have the 3 components to go through. We have the housing production plan, Then we have the portions of the local comprehensive plan. Then I'll touch briefly on the open space plan. So, in the publicly posted packet, I don't know if you gentlemen saw it, I have extra copies. So you can take these extra copies if you like. I'm pretty sure Christine saw them because somebody incorporated them in the packet for tonight. Was that you, Christine?
I think it may have been Joyce.
Okay.
Actually.
So, in terms of the blue and yellow, these are, the housing production plan is about 100 pages. But, and, you know, a lot of it was general information about our water resources, you know, to include our, you know, ponds, estuaries, et cetera. So, we will focus certainly only on the points that apply directly to the water supply, the public water supply. So these comments have already been incorporated by the committee into the draft plan that they're presenting tonight to the select board. But everything's still open, so please, any comments or any suggestions, fire away. So these first two pages, the yellow and the blue, as we call them, pertain to three sections of the housing production plan that, you know, as I said, we weren't notified, you know, till our last meeting, so this was kind of Jason, myself, and Dan. But as I say, it's still all wide open, so just trying to get a head start. So the first point that I noticed that bothered me a little bit was a couple of times in the report it had the language repeated that some of our areas were without municipal water. And yes, that is true, but it's not as pertinent a fact as it was in 2010, if you know what I mean, when, you know, a lot of this information came from our old report of 2010. Right now, the areas without municipal water, for the most part, the end of new streets that have been created, that developers, you know, only go down as far as, you know, their homes, you know, and there might be one home on the end that doesn't want to pay for the main to go there. So at any rate, we just kind of wanted to tone that thought down a little bit. It's, you know, we don't have gigantic areas without municipal water right now. So this language that is in blue below it was suggested. Although municipal water is available throughout the town, there are a few isolated areas not yet served. That said, the aging water infrastructure may require upgrades to support increases in development density. And that's an important point, is that, as Alan tells us, you know, our infrastructure is, a lot of it is 1936. And so, for instance, with the project we're doing on Route 28, I always point to Route 28, you know, that's a huge effort towards upgrading that old infrastructure. That's throughout the town, so that has to be a real focus. The other two sections, one was the one about the contaminants, and you can see the language there.
Noreen, can I just ask, do the yellow and blue mean anything?
The yellow is the original language. That's,
Okay, because we didn't get any notes on this.
there's a memo in the packet that described it all.
I didn't see that, okay.
Yeah. At any rate, that's all right. I anticipated there was such a big packet, not everybody to go through everything, but there was a memo. But at any rate, the yellow is the language that is currently in the draft plan. They have a draft plan that's on their website. And the blue is the language we're suggesting to the committee with your input wide open.
And this is going to them tonight?
Well, over the next week or so, whenever we can turn it around. No, they're presenting another version of their draft tonight, but these are drafts.
Okay.
You know, like they had a draft in October, they had a draft in December, now they have a new one, you know, so, you know, certainly time is valuable. Yes,
Lauren,
Christine.
Did Karen or Joyce respond back that we will incorporate what was in the blue, that we've already made, accommodated the changes?
Actually, she did respond back that that was her intention, but in addition to that, I happened to look at tonight's packet for the select board meeting, and it was all beautifully incorporated. It wasn't necessarily in the exact same sections that we had put it, you know, some was put in a different place, but it's in there in red. You can see it, and, you know, it can be changed if desired, but this, for the housing protection plan only, not the local comprehensive plan, yes, these comments are in there. So,
Thank you.
so for the second one, of course, was the part about, the second one's hard to read with the blue, but this is the one where it mentions the Water Management Act permit, which, what there?
Your blue's lighter, I can't.
Oh, okay.
Okay, go ahead.
The Water Management Act permit that increased our pumping capacity, which that only happened last summer. So that was good. And the third section was just to take out the word untreated in the water supply, because our water is treated. As I said, this was in the public packet. So I would go to the board and ask how you feel about these comments.
This board you're asking?
Yes.
Oh, I think they're good.
Yeah, I thought they
I
were
think
well
I think
worded.
they should be incorporated.
Yeah.
They've been incorporated?
They have, in the draft, they are.
Yeah, okay.
And nicely worded, too. Yeah. And if you have anything, if you have a desire to read the housing production plan
I
and
do.
have anything come up in the next couple of days, time is a factor for them, but it is still open. They're still visiting boards, so.
Can I ask, what is your schedule as far as getting approved for this now?
For the housing production plan, we're looking to, once we have an endorsement from the select board, we will then submit that to the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities for their review. And, but the local comprehensive plan, we are still looking to receive feedback from the various town boards and department heads as well, town staff.
And I'll get to that in a minute.
And our date, goal of taking it to town meeting is this town meeting.
Right.
In May.
Correct.
Yeah.
So if there are comments, we are looking to get all of that
Right.
feedback back to the consultants so that they can incorporate any comments or changes.
I got plenty for you.
Okay.
Is there a deadline for these
Prior
comments?
to,
The sooner the better.
prior to the end of March.
Prior to the end of March?
Yes.
All right, so if we've looked at these, I'll move on.
These are all in there.
Right, yeah, and it looks great in there in the draft. All right, so now I'm going to move on to the section, a nice weekend, for the local comprehensive plan. Now, these comments were not in the packet. They were not yet ready at this point. So,
And these, there's a lot more time on it. Not a lot more, but
Well-
there's more time on
we have a lot of other things going on.
it. Oh, no, I'm just saying,
Yeah.
it's not going before the select board tonight.
No, but nevertheless. All right, so folks, I might be one shot on that document. This project is killing my toner at home, I want you to know. Here's one for Tracy, I am one shot. I'm gonna have to ask one of you folks to share.
Where's it going?
I'll give you mine when I leave,
Okay.
Tracy.
No problem.
Okay. I'm sorry, Dave, you can take this back. I'll give Tracy mine for her notes. Okay, so the local comprehensive plan was in your packet. I did go through it, and I got input from Dan and conversations with Jason. As you heard, we have a longer timeframe on this. But quite honestly, the areas covered are similar to the ones in the other report, particularly when it comes to water supply. So the suggestions from the people that I've talked about pertain to 3 sections. So I would first ask you, actually you can do it just from this page, but the first one is page 3-7, under the existing community assets section. And as you read in this, because the current is repeated here, the current is yellow and the suggested is gray, not blue, to not be confusing. And as you see, the current section talks about our groundwater situation in general, a number of wells and treatment plants that we work from. And of course, the second paragraph talks about the seasonal aspect of our operation. So the alternate for that particular case is really not too different. It's a little bit updated in terms of the description of our wellheads and treatment centers, but it's similar language. One comment that I found more astounding than the others was the fact that the current draft of the LCP says that our summer use doubles, whereas our consultant said that our summer use goes up by a factor of 5. So we might want to double check that, but you can see it says increases the daily volume of water pumped from approximately 1 million gallons per day in the winter to around 5 million gallons per day in the summer. So we'll double check that, but I think our consultant has a good feeling for it. I will be, after input from this board, I would be sending these along, Christine, this afternoon, CCing you
Great.
and you two gentlemen to Joyce with an update of where this board stands, so that when you talk tonight, you'll have, be able to, say that you met with us. Yeah.
Thank you. We appreciate that.
So that's the first section for conversation. I don't know, maybe I should stop there and let people take a chance to read it.
Yeah,
Since
we're
I
not
just-
gonna make any decision on this right now. No way.
Okay,
Just no,
pardon me?
no way.
All right,
You just come to a meeting, you hand us all this stuff. No, that ain't gonna be.
okay. Whatever you like, Alan.
No, this absolutely should not be. Yeah, plus it wasn't in the public packet, right?
Well, I mean, the plan was, that's all right. I mean, whatever you will is, we were just notified 2 weeks ago, so we're just trying to get ahead of this for you, so.
But these are just comments, right?
These are
Right.
just comments.
Yeah.
And you can take your time with this
Yeah.
review for the local comprehensive plan. We're still in the process.
Right.
We just have done a comprehensive first draft, and I think that's what we sent out to
Right.
the various boards for their initial response. And as we go through it, take your time with this. We're not expecting you to respond today. So
Right.
it's a lot of information to take in.
We're just at the final last few tweaks of the housing production plan, which kick over. And so until we get that to stop
We're
switching
talking about the
around.
next
Yeah,
20+ years or more, or whatever, whoever.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's time for some thought. At what time does the well run dry?
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, so there's no point in going through this now? Is that what I'm hearing from the
I'd
board?
like to read it and kind of get
Yeah.
my thoughts in place.
All right, so perhaps I'll bring it back next meeting.
That's fine. That's fine.
Okay.
Well, thank you all very much for your
Thanks for
time.
coming.
I'm just gonna finish off the topic. I will also say to you then, while you're gathering your comments, you can go on to the local comprehensive plan website, and this is detailed in the memo that was included in the packet, and look at the open space and recreation plan, which I went through and identified a couple of areas for comment, but I'll wait to hear the board's comments on the open space and recreation plan rather than giving out mine.
Is there-
Trying to make it easier
Well,
for
you're on the
everyone.
board, we're all board members.
Is it,
I think
is it?
that's-
Well, the
is there-
thing was that I went through and edited it all for you, but if you'd rather go through yourself, then I think that's great. So,
Is there a deadline on the open space for you to get comments too? Are you guys reaching for a date?
Yes, we're looking to wrap the open space and recreation plan by the end, by mid-February.
Okay,
we
so
can
the time is of the
yeah.
essence?
Yes.
Okay.
But neither the open space and recreation plan or the HPP have to go to town meeting.
Oh, okay.
They have their own separate.
I just want to be clear what we're expected to approve or make comments on. We're all up here, all on the same page.
so I would ask the board, what is your pleasure on the portion which is the housing production plan that we covered? It was in your packets.
I'd like to move forward on that.
I think we should,
Are you needing a motion here to recommend that?
yes.
I'd make a motion, we recommend that, to approve their housing production plan.
Okay, do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yeah, all right.
Thank you very much for all the hard work and planning
It's a
and,
lot, right?
yes,
Yeah.
it's very
So-
detailed.
Christine, are you going to be there tonight?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so forget what I said about sending an email to Joyce. We will hold on that, but if you could convey that the board did vote on the housing production plan portion,
I'll be happy to.
that would be
Thank you very
great.
much.
All
Thank
right?
you all.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you very much, folks. Thanks for
Ed, are you
your,
going tonight to the board meeting?
Yeah, I might, yeah.
I might go.
Do I have enough? I think I will, yeah.
Yes, he's coming.
Okay, I might go too, so I can report.
Didn't hear you, Tracy.
Ed, before you leave, I want to say to you and Bob, I just feel so sorry at anybody with a California background for, I mean, just, you know, I'm sure you have communities and contacts and friends, and heart goes out to you.
It's been a tough
Yeah,
time.
it's, you know, just been this weekend actually, that I've been getting emails and Facebook things from old high school friends that are now wandering the streets trying to find someplace to live.
It's
Oh.
crazy.
You know, yeah, so, anyway, I'm good.
All right.
For the rest of your meeting.
Thank you all.
Bye-bye. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it for the
Hopefully
background.
not.
And you guys can
I mean,
only
it's just mind-boggling.
I'm sorry?
downhill progression my problem that they've been having
Well,
to fight a fire in the whole city.
Yeah, no water supply is designed for that. It's just not. You can't. Only so many faucets you can open up before
Every house that goes down,
the water's.
the water's just flowing freely.
Yeah.
Okay, folks.
I was telling them what around is,
So next we have the superintendent's report.
Yes. right, so we got the update from Route 28. That was good, gives everybody a timeline. Talk a little bit about Bay Road. Mrs. Casey, I have been in contact with her. We're gonna go out there and we're gonna camera the sewer main that's out in front of her house. At her service where it comes down, one of the cleanouts that's right there, we're gonna put some dye in that, and we're gonna watch it and see how it comes into the main. And we're gonna camera before we flush and after we flush the sewer main to see if there's any discrepancies of what's going on now. And then from there, we'll give that to the engineers in the town, and that will be, we'll wait to hear if they're gonna talk to the contractor, RJV, and see where that progresses. So that's where we are with Bay Road.
Did she have a backup?
Yeah, she had a backup, and we're trying to figure it out, whether it's a combination of service, what's usage, or if it's the main right now. So that's what we're looking at.
And they're there now, I mean, it's a.
So Thursday, they'll be out there, they'll be cameraing the sewer
Oh, no, I
main.
meant the homeowner, is it a year-round
Yes.
residence?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, year-round residents, and we've been out there every Thursday, we've been flushing that main, and nothing's happened. So we're just trying to do our due diligence and trying to put all the pieces together, so we have a very good, a lot of information on it.
Did they shot the grades between manholes?
They did shoot the grades.
What did they come out with?
They came out with, it's laid very, it is pitched, but there are some discrepancies of it bellying there, so.
Bellying means like
Meaning,
horizontal?
it goes,
Dips.
the pitch is, it drops down, then comes back up, and
Oh.
it's sort of, it's not a consistent, so that's what the video, the previous video shot. We're gonna do 2 more videos, one before they flush it, and another one after they flush it, to see where we are, because we wanna see if there's anything sitting in the main
Yeah.
and causing any blockage or anything. And then after we flush it, we want to see what we have going there. So that's what the plan is. Then we'll give it to the engineers and let them take a look at it and go from there. The Caseys have been extremely patient. They're very kind, very nice, and we're just trying to put this together as fast as we can for them.
So RJV put that in?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. The tank painting, that we got the contract back from the engineering firm that's going to put it out to bid, that is going to inspect it, do all the inspecting work on the tank. We took their contract, send that to council. They looked it over and said, no, we're going to use our contract. Their contract that they were using goes for more of a independent contractor and not a government entity like ourselves. So I just received that from Miles today, and they just had a few little tweaks in there. I'm going to send that to our council, and then hopefully we'll get this.
Who's Miles?
Miles is from Haley Wood, the engineering firm. So they only had 3 minor things that they would like in our contract. So I'm going to send it to our council, and we should have that within the next few days. And then hopefully we can get that all scheduled, and we can put that out to bid within the next month.
Question. We actually already approved that. It's just that the terms and conditions weren't available then. And we did sign it, but it didn't have the proper terms and conditions on the back. Is that something that you'd want us to come in and sign before? Because we've already approved it. We discussed it and we approved it. Is that?
With the flaws?
We didn't even look at the terms and conditions, Alan. We just looked at the engineering portion. That was the meeting when Jason wasn't here and Sandy brought in the page, with all of our signatures. So I mean, if you'd rather
So-
discuss it again, it's up to you.
Yeah, let's discuss it again.
Okay,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an education.
all right.
So the scope of work will not change.
Yeah,
The scope of work will stay the same. It's just all the little fine print underneath there, and I can show that to you.
sure,
Yep.
okay. Because
So-
I thought when we approved it, that's what we were approving, the scope of work.
Mhm.
Didn't think about that.
Mhm.
Yeah, the fine print.
Yeah, it's just, it's a lot of the legal terms that, yeah,
Okay.
so that's basically what that is. We had our council look at it, and they came back with some really good observations on it and just said, no, here's the one that we're gonna use, and I said, okay.
Okay.
So we'll put that back on the next agenda in total.
Sure.
For a discussion from A to Z. We just won't have to vote again, because we did already vote.
Yeah, okay. All right.
The heating system went out over here.
Oh, no.
Well, that was last meeting. We've been putting things together, getting some prices on it. We found they were gonna put a new, forced hot air unit up over here. The price was, it was a lot of money for forced hot air. We
How
still-
much?
We still haven't even seen it. So we were able to get a Modine heater for over here that will do all that square footage, and I think that was $650.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
Yeah, so I would have paid that just in prevailing wage on, for them to even put that new heating unit over there. And it's only for 4 months out of the year. So we're gonna be able to do that in-house, and that'll save quite a bit of money there, so.
And that's a forced air unit?
Up top there, it's gassed forced hot air.
Huh,
And
wow.
so we're gonna do an electric Modine over here.
Wow.
So that'll be the new one. It'll be one that hangs like a heater in the garage, and it will do all of one side. So we were able to purchase that for $650.
Wow.
And, yeah, and Paul, our electrician, will be putting that in, mounting it, and we'll be wiring it, doing some of the wiring today.
Huh.
So,
Great having our own electrician.
yeah, so, it works out very well. Phase 3, wastewater, it's going well. Little hiccups with some, cutting some water surfaces out of the way, but they are taking care of those. And once they cut one out of the way, it's considered damage. They have to replace it from the corporation at the water main to the curb stop at the people's houses. We were planning on doing all of the old steel services, they're called cement line iron. We were planning on doing all of those steel services in-house. So after they put that sewer main through, we were gonna go back and we were gonna be replacing them, all of the old services. What's happening is when Bobby Hour, whenever they cut one, they have to replace it. So we're just providing them with the material for them to replace it. They're using their manpower to do it. So it's sort of a win-win for both of us.
Yeah, it sounds good.
Working together with Bobby Howe, so it was good, yeah. So, and other than that,
Good work.
the water's still flowing.
Good.
Yeah, Hammond.
Okay, commissioners, report, Alan,
No, I'm good.
Judith,
nothing, thanks.
John,
All set.
Bob.
No, I'm good.
I have just one item. I wanted to let the board know that we had a request for an abatement a few months back from the, I forget the street address, but it was the We Can organization down on Route 28. And just wanted to let the board know, I'll be putting that back on the agenda for our next meeting. Since we last had them before us, Wellesley has done 2 months, two rounds of the e-coder. And, you know, we're kind of hoping that would show us something to, to partly explain that gigantic water use that they had, and it didn't show us anything. And it's very likely that nothing may ever, that it's an anomaly and nothing may ever happen again, or that whatever happens may not show up until next summer. And so I'll bring it back and we can discuss it then, no decisions in advance. But in your packet will be the E-code results and those reports from Wellesley. And we'll probably let them know they'll be on the agenda so that we can consider settling the issue from last August. So we can take them from, so I'm just letting you know.
So, but we're not in growing season now.
We're not in
Growing season.
growing season.
Growing. When you have a higher use of water in August that you won't have in December or
Right.
November.
I'm not quite, they don't have irrigation, Alan, so I'm not quite
Yeah.
following you, yeah.
Oh.
It's a non-irrigation issue.
I thought they did.
have a drip
Yeah.
Well, they have
That's
a
still-
drip line,
uh,
yeah. They have just
That
a,
could be serious.
well, we'll look at it all again, you know.
Okay.
But it's been 4 or 5 months, so it seems like we should bring it back and try to resolve it. So I'm just giving you a heads up that that'll be in your packet and on your agenda, all those reports.
Did they pay, have they paid up?
No, we told them that we would put it off till we did further investigation, and now it's been, about 5, 6 months, so. So that's it, that's all I have. And we will be going into executive session, and we won't be returning to a public meeting. So with that said, I would take a motion to move into executive session.
So moved.
A second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
See ya.